Slowbro versus Slowking. Today I'm going to examine how this split evolution performs in solo challenges of Pokemon Crystal. The rules are only my starter in battle, no items in battle except held items, no glitches or exploits, and I can't use evasion boosting moves. When I sat down to play these two Pokemon, I felt very similar to how I felt when I looked at Poliwrath and Politoed. Slowbro and Slowking are incredibly similar to each other. In terms of base stats, they share 4: 95 HP, 30 speed, 75 attack, and 100 special attack. The only difference for their stats is the fact that the defensive values are swapped. So Slowbro has 110 defense and 80 special defense, whereas Slowking has the inverse. They of course both have the same growth rate, it's medium fast, not great for the early game, but I don't anticipate they're going to be struggling against Falkner. Because in terms of move pool, Slowbro starts with Curse, Tackle, Growl, and Water Gun. This is a really good starting set. We get the same type attack bonus damage with Water Gun. Curse allows us to boost our attack and our defense at the cost of lowering our speed, but we don't care about speed. Slowbro and Slowking are going to be moving second against pretty much everything in the game unless they're holding the Quick Claw. Through level up, Slowbro gets access to Confusion at level 20, Disable, Headbutt, Withdraw, Amnesia at level 46, and then Psychic at level 54. I probably won't have to wait until I reach Kanto to get the TM to learn this move, which is really convenient for a Psychic type Pokemon. This is where things get a little bit weird. If we switch over to Slowking's move pool, you can see that it starts with different moves. Curse and Tackle. It does not get Growl or Water Gun. It has to wait to learn these through level up. Growl at only level 6 and Water Gun at level 15, which does make its starting set worse when compared with Slowbro. Beyond that, it gets different moves as well. It doesn't learn either Withdraw or Amnesia, but it does get Psychic at a lower level this time, only 48 instead of 54. I think overall, this move pool points to the fact that Slowbro is going to win this race. It just has so much more momentum in the early game having access to Water Gun, and even though it gets access to Psychic a little bit later on, the fact that it learns Amnesia should make the late game very trivial. Okay, rival, he's of course going to be picking Chikorita to make this as difficult as possible for me to win. On my way to Violet City with Slowbro, I do fight some optional trainers, specifically youngster Joey at the beginning with his Rattata. This is just to gain a little bit more experience so that I'm not extremely underleveled for Falkner, but beyond that, I don't fight any more optionals. Birdkeeper Abe inside of the gym is actually a little bit scary because his Spearow is really offensive, and even though Slowbro has the higher defensive stat, he still brings me all the way down to orange health before I knock out his singular Pokemon. This forces me back to the Pokemon Center, wasting a little bit of time. With Rod out of the way, now it's time to take on Falkner. I think there are two ways to do this fight. Either I can just spam Water Gun and knock out his Pokemon fast enough, or I can take the more defensive and conservative approach, which is setting up Curse at the beginning of the battle. If I do this, then his Pidgey and Pidgeotto are going to deal very little damage. Remember that in Generation 2, all flying moves and ground moves deal physical damage, so Mudslap and Gust do not deal special damage. Because of this, Curse allows me to set up, and then I can use Tackle for massive damage. At +4, I don't one-shot the Pidgey, which I guess is a little bit disappointing. I have to two-shot. In the end though, I have more than enough health against the Pidgeotto, which is last. It's doing roughly 2 damage per hit, and I also have a berry, allowing Slowbro to heal into the green before I knock out Falkner's final Pokemon. In these versus videos, I always play the Pokemon that I predict to win first, so I have a little bit more experience with the underdog. So today I'm playing Slowking second. Even though it has lower physical defense and higher special defense, I still think that Curse is going to allow me to muscle my way through Birdkeeper Abe and Falkner, so I skip the one optional trainer on my way to Violet City. With a medium fast growth rate, I am the same level that I would have been fighting Abe with the extra trainer, so he really isn't necessary for either of these Pokemon. Because I was scared how much damage Slowking would take, I used the more conservative approach here, setting up Curse first and then knocking out the Spearow over 4 turns. Falkner, just like with Slowbro, is really easy. I have no option for Water Gun to seduce me into using special damage, so I'm just going to use Tackle after getting to +4. 2-shot the Pidgey and 3-shot the Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto. This is essentially identical. The only big difference is when the Pidgeotto gets a critical hit, bypassing all of my defensive setup. This brings Slowking down to 9 health, but that's not enough for the flying type specialist to win. Okay, getting the Zephyr badge gives me a 12.5% boost to my attack stat, and it also gives both Slowbro and Slowking access to the Mudslap TM. These two Pokemon have so much coverage. For example, 4 ice type moves, 3 ground type moves. Gligar is completely pissed off at both of these psychic types. Like, why do they get ground type moves? I don't know. They also get Iron Tail, Fury Cutter, even Fire Blast. The coverage is honestly ridiculous, but not in this section of the game. Tackle, Curse, Growl, and Mudslap is not a very good set, so inside of Union Cave, I'm gonna pick up the TM for Swift. If you're thinking to yourself, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Slowbro and Slowking, the Pokemon with the literal word slow in their name, to learn the move Swift, then I agree with you. But if we look at the Japanese translation of this move's name, then it paints a kind of different picture. Its name is Speed Star, which I guess makes sense. They're shooting stars out that move very fast. They're not actually moving fast themselves. The reason I'm picking up Swift is because I need a more powerful normal type move that can benefit from Curse's setup, because Bugsy is coming up next, and I'm going to want to max out my setup against him because the Scyther has super effective damage with Fury Cutter. Luckily for me, Bugsy's lead is Metapod, which is kind of incompetent. Its only damage dealing move is Tackle, so I can set up here with Curse as many times as I want, and I go all the way to +6. Then I use Swift, knocking the Metapod out sadly over 2 turns, and Bugsy sends in Scyther. Turn number 1, it goes for Fury Cutter, gets a critical hit, and does a lot of damage. Swift isn't enough to one-shot his ace, but his second Fury Cutter does much less because it doesn't get a crit. So Slowking survives, knocks out his ace, learns Water Gun, and then despite getting poisoned, finishes off Kakuna. Okay, the rivals next. This is the battle that I wasn't anticipating. It's actually going to be really brutal. For it, I've taught Fury Cutter. Apparently Mudslap just wasn't useful at all. I'm going to be using Water Gun to knock out the Ghastly, and then I was thinking that Fury Cutter being super effective against the Bayleaf would give me options, but it doesn't really. Razor Leaf crits right away, and the Bayleaf is able to 2-shot Slowking. So that's not going to be a good option. Maybe I can set up on the Ghastly using Curse. But that's also not an option if the Ghastly immediately puts Slowking to sleep with Hypnosis, then spams Lick, which is super effective, doing okay damage every turn. I'm really not used to taking this much damage from Ghastly. Normally I'm just scared of Hypnosis or Paralysis from Lick. Slowking is in such a bad position here, it even gets paralyzed, and I start using Fury Cutter to try and stack up the damage for the Bayleaf to hopefully one-shot, but this isn't gonna work. The Ghastly actually knocks me out. Right now, I am wishing that we started with Confusion. That would make this battle so much easier. Instead, what I have to rely on is stacking up curses against the Ghastly. Hopefully it doesn't put me to sleep or paralyze me. Then once I wake up with +2 attack, I knock out the Ghastly using Water Gun and move on to the Bayleaf, which he's sending in second. So how much damage will Fury Cutter do now? I'm using it instead of Swift because I think over 3 turns it is going to do more damage. Luckily for me, turn 1 Bayleaf whiffs a Poison Powder, which is perfect. Then on turn 2, it misses a Razor Leaf, and after surviving one on the next turn, Slowking knocks it out with a 3rd Fury Cutter. Here's the unfortunate thing with Slowbro. It doesn't really have better options in this next stage of the game. I did do some additional optional training with it, but that really isn't going to affect results here. Bugsy comes down to Curse setup on the Metapod with Swift to sweep. Oh my gosh, say that 6 times. With Bugsy out of the way, then I have to take on the rival, and he's just as brutal with Slowbro. Sometimes here, he's even switching out the Ghastly, sending in the Zubat, and normally this Pokemon is completely ineffective. But in this case, it has super effective damage with Bite, and it can also flinch me. Plus, it can confuse Slowbro with Supersonic. Yeah, I lose the first battle, even though I got set up to +3 prior to the Bayleaf. You'll note here that I'm not using Fury Cutter. This is because I had slightly less experience in this battle, because remember, I'm playing Slowbro first. After losing not once, not twice, but 3 times, I finally get the setup I need, and I'm able to knock out the Bayleaf using Swift. As I head into the next section of the game, let's just contemplate what the options are for Rival 2 for both Slowbro and Slowking, because I am going to have to come back and do these playthroughs again. And spoiler, but the Rival is brutal. I lost a full day of playtime just trying to get by him with Slowbro alone. They could level up to 20 to get access to Confusion, evasion, a same type attack bonus move with a base power of 50. Its effective power would be 75, and I have no doubt that we would easily one-shot the Ghastly and the Zubat. But remember, we're slow. We would probably be moving second against them still. This move would also give better damage against the Bayleaf right away without having to set up with Curse, so that is potentially one way to solve the problem, but grinding on wild Pokemon in Johto is just never really a good choice. You lose so much time. Looking at the TM and HM set that these two have access to, it's very frustrating that as soon as they get to Ilex Forest, they can upgrade Swift into Headbutt, although the secondary chance to flinch is rarely going to be useful. But then inside of Goldenrod City, they both get access to Ice Punch, a move that would make the Bayleaf absolutely trivial. One other potential option is keeping Mud Slap and then using it against the Ghastly or the Bayleaf to make them miss a little bit more frequently. I don't really like to use strategies like that, but maybe it's the best thing they have access to. For now, let's continue with the playthrough in Goldenrod City. Here I'm going to do all the regular errands. I'll go through these rapid fire. Pick up the coin case, buy myself an Abra, then pick up Kenya as I head north towards the national park. Once I arrive in this location, I'm going to be going to this lady and picking up the Quick Claw as quickly as is possible. And then I'm going to give it to both of these Pokemon and likely set and forget it throughout the majority of this run. In Generation 2, it gives the Pokemon a roughly 23% chance of moving first within its priority bracket. While I'm in the national park, I had to make the choice. Do I want to pick up Dig and use it as a physical move for coverage? I don't think this is the best choice for Slowbro. Upon teleporting back to Goldenrod City, I head to the department store right away to pick up a copy of the Ice Punch TM. This will be useful in 1 second. First, I need to beat Whitney. Just like Bugsy, this is a pretty straightforward battle in terms of strategy. I can set up with Curse against the Clefairy, which is kind of ineffective unless it rolls a really good move with Metronome. You might be a little bit worried about the off chance that the Clefairy rolls something like Fissure or Guillotine. Don't worry, in Generation 2 the mechanics were changed. In Generation 1, the Pokemon using the move has to be faster than the target, but in Generation 2, the target can't have a level that's higher than the user. So in this case, with my Slowbro being level 19, Clefairy can't one-hit us with one of those moves. It could use something like Self-Destruct, but that wouldn't do very well since I'm setting up my defense. I get to +3 attack, and then I set up with Fury Cutter. I don't want to one-shot the Clefairy, I'm nowhere close to that. It takes me 3 turns to knock it out, stacking up damage, and then I learn Confusion in the place of Water Gun before I go up against the Miltank. It starts using Rollout, but Fury Cutter is doing so much damage that I easily 2-shot and earn myself the 3rd badge. This one gives me a 12.5% boost to my speed stat. Now, there's a reason I gave up Water Gun so easily to get access to Confusion. I have to fight Sudowoodo next. It's a little bit annoying that I don't have Water Gun for this battle, but in the end, Confusion still gets a 2-hit. Just so you know, in all my first playthroughs, I always mandate that I have to knock the Sudowoodo out or catch it. Obviously, I'm not going to catch it. It makes no sense. It's not a good HM user. In my second playthrough, I'll just be running away from this thing because that's the much faster choice. Now, the reason I gave up Water Gun is because I get a far better replacement to it after I finish off all the Kimono Girls. I get access to the HM for Surf, which of course I'm going to teach to Slowbro right away. I replace Fury Cutter, and then I teach Ice Punch in the place of Headbutt. I have converted my moveset from physical moves into special moves. Curse is still just kind of hanging out there. It has no synergy really with my current set unless I want to raise my defense. The rival battle in Burned Tower is next. I'm slower than the Haunter, meaning it's going to be able to curse Slowbro before I do anything. And I also went into this battle without healing, which is objectively just a mistake. Luckily, Haunter goes for Lick, inflicting almost no damage, and it doesn't paralyze Slowbro. So then I knock it out with a super effective Confusion. Magnemite is slower, it falls to a single Surf, and then the rival sends in Bayleaf. But instead of attacking, he just misses a Poison Powder, allowing me to use Ice Punch, and Slowbro gets a critical hit, knocking his Grass type out in 1 turn. All that's left is Zubat. It's actually speed tied with Slowbro. I move first with Ice Punch, and that's that for the rival. By the way, I could see some of you, if you're new to this channel, getting confused with the speed matchups. Like, how is Slowbro ever moving first against something? How is the Zubat not faster? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's 3 factors. Number 1, I'm overleveled. Number 2, I have a badge boost from Whitney's badge. Number 3, I get stat experience, and none of the AI Pokemon have any. Because of this, the solo Pokemon I'm running always seems faster than it should otherwise be. However, these beneficial speed interactions for Slowbro do have a limit because it is just so slow. For example, the Sage Sage inside of Morty's gym has 5 Ghastly. They're pretty low level, 16. I am definitely over-leveled. I definitely have a badge boost, and I definitely have stat experience that these Pokemon don't have access to. But still, Slowbro is 1 speed slower than all of them. Well, actually, not the last one, because I level up to 25, and that gives me 34 speed, meaning that I can move first against it. This battle proved to me that I don't think Slowbro is quite ready to face Morty yet. Instead, I'm gonna head west towards Olivine City. I can pick up the Mint Berry along the way, and then do extra training in the Lighthouse to level up Slowbro a little bit more. By the time I'm fighting Birdkeeper Dennis, the last trainer I'm going to fight in the Lighthouse, Slowbro is level 27, but it only has 37 speed. So all of Morty's Pokemon are still going to be moving first, unless I use the Quick Claw, but I'm not going to do that because I want the Mint Berry to counter out Hypnosis. Ghastly's first. It sets up Curse, and Slowbro will take damage if it doesn't knock out Morty's Pokemon. But if it does, this volatile status condition inflicts no damage on that turn. So I'm able to make it by the Ghastly without taking a single hit point of damage. Haunter comes in next, it goes for Nightshade, doing okay damage, and then Confusion one-shots. Once again, no Curse damage, which is perfect. Now, time for his ace, Gengar. This is the Pokemon I'm most scared of because it has access to a same type attack bonus, Shadow Ball. Although, in Generation 1, 2, and 3, this move deals physical damage, so it isn't utilizing Gengar's best offensive stat. Before doing this battle, I should have thought about this interaction and known that Gengar was going to be spamming Shadow Ball instead of trying to use Hypnosis. That would have given me access to the Quick Claw, which could have made my results here a little bit more consistent. Instead, I get hit by Shadow Ball, which does okay damage, and then Confusion does way more than half. Gengar survives on a sliver, and Confusion inflicts confusion, which is perfect. Slowbro takes Curse damage. Another Shadow Ball definitely would knock me out, but Gengar hits itself in confusion and Slowbro makes it to Morty's final Haunter. This one is level 23, which is incredibly important because it goes for Nightshade, dealing 23 damage, leaving Slowbro with 2 health before I use Confusion and one-shot his final Mon. This was a really close battle and Slowbro lucked through it, getting Confusion against the Gengar, which then hit itself. Without that, I definitely would have had a reset here. This section of the game is almost identical for Slowking. I'm going to be using Curse and Fury Cutter against Whitney again for very reliable damage. Then in the dance hall with the Kimono Girls, I make slightly different choices. This time I keep Headbutt on my set, giving up Curse instead, so I can have 3 special moves and 1 physical move. This isn't really going to make a big impact on the playthrough. The Rival and Burned Tower is once again easy because of my type coverage, and then I go to the Lighthouse, training up to level 27 before coming back to Morty and using the Mint Berry. This gives us a second opportunity to evaluate if the right choice is using the Quick Claw instead. I thought the Haunter and the Gengar are only going to use their Ghost type moves against Slowking, but that is not the case. This time around, instead Gengar goes for Hypnosis on turn 1, so I am very thankful that I gave Slowking the Mint Berry. This time around, the Gengar seems committed to using the sleep-inducing move. The AI has a 25% debuff on accuracy of moves like Hypnosis, so it only has a 45% chance to work. In this case, when he rolls it for the second time, he gets the unfavorable roll and misses. I finish off the Gengar and then one-shot the following Haunter. So, just like Slowbro, this battle also required a little bit of luck. I'm playing with 2 Psychic types. I think it's obvious that I should be going and facing Chuck next. After all, getting access to Fly will speed up the routing in the mid-game. The thing is, in Generation 2, not all fighting types are made equally. Some of them have good special defense, like for example this Hitmonlee. Luckily, it doesn't have any good offensive moves, so I can just 2-shot with Confusion. The Hitmonchan on the other hand has super effective Thunder Punch, but it's not even going to use it, instead choosing Comet Punch. I remember a long time ago, these guys used to actually be difficult for me to beat in some challenges. They rarely are these days. With the tag team trainers defeated, now I'm ready to take on Chuck. Are you paying attention, or are you watching in the background? If you are, I think you should pay attention right now. Check this out. Slowking can't one-shot the Primeape. It survives with a tiny amount of health. This is really scary because then the fighting type goes for an incredible move, Fury Swipes, which does pathetic damage. I knock out Chuck's lead, move on to his ace Poliwrath. It moves first, uses Dynamic Punch, but it doesn't do very much damage because I'm a psychic type. However, it confuses Slowking. Also, confusion is not doing more than half to the Poliwrath, which no-scopes another Dynamic Punch, bringing me to orange health. Slowking hits itself, doing a lot of damage because my defense is lowered. I just need to hit one more confusion. Luckily for me, Chuck misses his next Dynamic Punch, but Slowbro doesn't miss hitting itself in confusion, so that is one reset to Chuck with a psychic type. Absolutely awful luck. I can't believe that happened. Obviously, in the next battle, I just beat Chuck. He shouldn't be a problem. With Fly, I'm heading back to Cherry Grove City to pick up the Mystic Water, which boosts the power of water-type moves by 10%. The problem is, if I hold this item, then I have to give up the Quick Claw, and I don't know if that's a good idea. I think for my second playthrough, I might cut this item entirely, just to smooth out the mid-game routing, saving a little bit of time. Plus, constantly switching items on and off of your solo Pokemon just wastes additional time in menus. And menus are notoriously awful to navigate on 4x speed. I swear they waste way more time than people think they do. Red Gyarados, I've got to beat this thing. You can't run away from it. You could use the Pokédoll, but items are banned in my solo challenges. It can be scary if it spams Dragon Rage over and over again, but in this case, it isn't. It just goes for Leer, then Dragon Rage, then misses another Leer, and I knock it out. Okay, time for the most exciting and exhilarating section of the game. We get to go in the Rocket Hideout and beat a bunch of trainers that are absolutely pathetic. Even the final battle in this location is completely simple. With them out of the game, the excitement is just going to continue to build to a fever pitch against Pryce. The Ice-type specialist is bad. I didn't know if you knew that. He is. He's awful. Look at me. I'm using Surf against the Seal, which is hilarious. It's able to two-shot. Then I continue using Surf on the Dugong because this is my best option. Well, Headbutt technically has the same effective power. This is purely because of Whitney's normal-type boost from her badge. I don't yet have a boost to Surf's effective power, but I am holding the Mystic Water and I do get the same type attack bonus. That's why these two moves are equal. In this case, though, I'm just barely not able to three-shot the Dugong, which can cause problems if it constantly uses Rest. I switched to using Headbutt here, and it does do slightly more damage, but I think this is purely because I got a slightly better damage roll. In the end, I three-shot the Dugong and move on to the Piloswine, which is an easy one-shot using Surf. Okay, Pryce, bad as he usually is. And the gym leader that's next is not going to be much better. Jasmine's team is quite ineffective against the Slowbro and Slowking line. Both Magnemites, while electric types, are very slow, so I can move first with Surf and knock them out. And the Steelix is even slower. It has 5 less speed than both Magnemite. Surf is also neutral against steel types and super effective against ground types, so Steelix takes super effective damage, and it's also a one-hit. We're gonna really quickly catch up with Slowbro. Unlike with Slowking, I do not have a reset to Poliwrath, even though it was hit by a Dynamic Punch. I think here the fact that my defense stat is naturally slightly higher does give Slowbro a small advantage against Chuck. I can't believe that's even something I'm mentioning during this video. Red Gyarados, on the other hand, is more difficult. Here, it does the things it needs to do, and it knocks out Slowbro. I had to blackout here because I didn't save before it, and I really should have. I make it back, defeat it on my second attempt, and then crush the rocket plotline. Pryce actually ends up being a little bit annoying when using Slowbro. The Dugong is surviving 3 hits, over and over again, using Rest to heal to full health. I'm using Confusion, even though it does slightly less damage when compared with Surf, because I want to inflict the status condition, have the Dugong hit itself, and then knock it out. For my follow-up playthrough, I really do think that leveling to 35 might be ideal for this battle, just to go over the damage rounding threshold and 3-shot consistently. We'll examine that damage range when I get there. Now, I depleted all of my Surf PP on the Dugong, trying to knock it out in only 3 turns without having to use Confusion, so I have to take on the Piloswine a little bit slower using Ice Punch to 3-shot. Luckily for Slowbro, I get a small reprieve here when my second Ice Punch gets a critical hit and Piloswine goes down. Just like with Slowking, Jasmine only takes 3 turns. While I was doing the radio tower section of the game, I had the chance to teach Slowbro Withdraw. Unlike in Generation 1, where this move can trigger the badge boost glitch, it doesn't really have any utility here in Generation 2. Plus, late into the game, I am going to be able to use Curse, but that will also raise my attack stat. Petrol at the end of the first part of Radio Tower is really easy because I have strong special moves which easily one-shot all of his coughing and even his ace wheezing. But the rival in the underground is a little bit of another story. he's still being awful. Not as awful as he was in Azalea Town, but his Golbat is faster than Slowbro, of course, uses Confuse Ray, confuses Slowbro. Luckily, I don't miss my Ice Punch and I knock out his lead. But I'm still confused and Slowbro hits itself against Magnemite. It goes for Thunder Shock, which is super effective, but not doing very much damage. Surf finishes it off, then the Sneasel does damage because I'm hitting myself in confusion. Feint Attack is super effective here, even though it's not doing much damage since it's a special attack. But Meganium is still left over, and I'm not able to do much damage, especially when I click on the wrong move. I choose Surf. I wouldn't have one-shot either way, so I would have taken damage from Razor Leaf. Hilariously then, the Grass type misses on the next turn, and I hit with Ice Punch, which does enough damage, so Haunter's all that's left. But Slowbro only has 11 hit points. The Ghost is of course faster, so it moves first with Shadow Ball, and it does enough damage to knock Slowbro out. What's the solution here? Well, Quick Claw activation against the Golbat lets me knock it out in one turn. From there, I'm faster than the Magnemite without confusion, Surf one hits. Sneasel isn't going to do much with Feint Attack now, although I do have to two-hit using Surf. After that, against Meganium, I don't make a misclick, choosing Ice Punch right away, and I get a critical hit, one-shotting. So I make it back to the Haunter in an absolutely fantastic position, mostly due to luck, and as a result, I'm able to take it out and earn myself a victory against the rival. At the end of the Underground, I'm not going to pick up Sleep Talk. I already know that I won't have space on my moveset for it. Plus, this move has really fallen out of favor, for me at least, in Generation 2. Early on into the channel, I used to use it all the time in combination with Rest, especially against Red, but I haven't found it that useful in recent days. Mostly when I do these first playthroughs, I was picking it up, but I think I'm going to be changing that habit, since it just isn't that useful anymore. After picking up the Return TM in the department store, I grabbed myself some vitamins. In this case, I'm going to purchase 6 calcium because they raise both my special attack and my special defense. Okay, rapid fire, Final Rocket Executive. Easy. Never Melt Ice, Rest TM. Then, inside of the gym, I fight this guy, get paralyzed, and Dragon Rage finishes Slowbro off, so I have to black out. Pretty frustrating. After that, I come back into the gym. This time, it's not a problem. Well, not really, because at the end of the gym, I run into this cool trainer, and it's essentially the same bad news as before. I get paralyzed by the Dragonair because I have one less speed than it. It has 64, Slowbro has 63. Clair's Dragonairs are going to have 66, so this is a bit unfortunate for me. If I'm going to be getting paralyzed and they're going to have a chance to do damage every turn, I don't like my odds in that fight. So instead, I'm going to use some rare candies now, raising Slowbro's level. At 46, it goes up to 65 speed, and I teach Amnesia in the place of Curse. I use 2 more candies, a total of 3, bringing it up to level 48, so it now has 67 speed, enough to move first against every single one of Clair's Dragonairs. Dragonair 1, one shot with Ice Punch. I forgot to equip the Never Melt Ice. It's fine, it doesn't matter, because the only thing that does in a Pokemon battle is how many turns it takes you to knock out Pokemon, and all the Dragonairs are still one-shots. The Kingdra that's last is going to take multiple turns. I decided to set up Amnesia here, but it's just going for Smokescreen, which is really frustrating. I miss so many times, but eventually I get a critical hit and I knock it out in only 2 turns, which should have been 3. Okay, rare candy time. I'm going to go to the Whirl Islands, pick up the rare candy there. This one costs quite a bit of time, so if I can cut it for the second playthrough, I will. The same principle applies for the Mount Mortar rare candy, which I also grab in this run. Inside Victory Road, I pick up the TM for Earthquake in case it's going to be useful, but I also think this is an item we'll be able to cut from the second run. One more time for the rival. Hopefully this isn't going to be too bad. I do have a different strategy this time around, which I didn't have access to in the Underground, which is I can just spam Amnesia, max out my special defense stat at 472, and from there I should take very little damage from his Pokemon. Sneasel is kind of a special attacker in this case. Meganium is, and so is Kadabra. The Magneton's never going to attack because I'm faster than it, which really means the only Pokemon he has that is kind of a threat to Slowbro is the Golbat, in case it uses Confuse Ray and then goes for Bite over and over again, but it's not doing this, it just chooses Wing Attack. So I sweep through the rest of his team, and now Slowbro is ready for the Elite Four. Slowking does not have problems in the Underground, unlike Slowbro. I don't think this comes down to its difference in special defense and physical defense stats. It just gets lucky in general. The Golbat doesn't confuse it, and then it freezes the Meganium when using Ice Punch. Also, one small difference between the runs is I've battled slightly more trainers with Slowking. Because of that, I don't have problems against this Dratini guy or the lady with the Dragonair inside of Clair's gym because I'm slightly faster. Although Slowking's experience is slightly below level 45 and its speed is 65, so I fight one wild Pokemon to level it up to get 66 speed. I really want to consistently move first against the Dragonairs, so I use a rare candy, going up to 68 speed, and then I face Clair. She's really easy, one-shot all the Dragonairs, and I can anticipate the damage range on her Kingdra. So here I use Surf turn 1, which doesn't seem to make sense. I'm trying to avoid the Hyper Potion. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow me to. She still heals. It takes a while because she's used Smokescreen, but eventually Slowking pulls through. Okay, jumping to the rival, I did go and pick up the rare candies that I also grabbed with Slowbro. Here the rival is once again really easy. I just one-shot all of his Pokemon. With that win though, Slowking does have one minor difference going into the Elite Four. It levels up to 48, and here it gets access to Psychic, which I teach in the place of Confusion. This is a big advantage for Slowking over the next 6 levels. Okay, now let's take on the Elite Four. Things don't start off very well here. Xatu is faster, it uses Confuse Ray, and then Slowking luckily does use Ice Punch, which one-shots the flying lead. Next, Executor comes in. You might find this a little bit strange. It is weak to the move that I just showed, but Will is picking it because the Grass type is super effective against the Water type. And Executor does have a Grass type move. Leech Seed. I one-shot it easily, luckily not being messed up by Confusion. The status condition continues to be ineffective because I one-shot the following Ace Xatu, and then against Jinx, finally Slowking hits itself. I'm just taking damage from Double Slap, which as you know is a terrible move, so Slowking pulls through and moves on to the final Pokemon Will has. In this case, it's Slowbro, which is very fitting, and the battle slows down here, because Will's Slowbro loves setting up with Curse and Amnesia. He really knows how to beat Red. Things do get fairly close, but I'm able to pull through with a win. Then for Koga, I have Psychic. It's going to absolutely demolish his entire team. The only Pokemon that even got to use a move was the Venomoth. It outspeeds and goes for Supersonic, which confuses me, but it doesn't prevent me from attacking. Strangely though, the Dark Bug type does faint to a single Psychic. Welcome new viewers to the channel. It's good to have you here. Bruno's next. Now, I almost skipped this battle in the narration, forgetting what happened, but I do need to talk about it because Slowking is slower than some of his Pokemon. Its speed ties the Hitmontop and then is slower than the Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and Onix. The only Pokemon it's going to move first against is the Machamp, which is typically the most scary, but in this case, Hitmonchan uses Thunder Punch and paralyzes Slowking. Okay, this is reminding me of Slowbro's battle against Chuck. Is Slowking also going to take a reset to a fighting type specialist? Well, the answer is no. It's just doing too much damage. Paralysis doesn't mess me up too many times, and Bruno can't do enough damage himself. So Machamp goes down, and I move on to Karen. Umbreon's first, and I have an advantage in this fight that I normally don't have. Umbreon loves to use Sand Attack or Confuse Ray, messing your Pokemon up right from the beginning of the battle. But in this case, as a Psychic type, it seems like it wants to use Feint Attack a little bit more. So it does that instead of Sand Attacking, giving me a 2-shot with Surf, and now I'm moving on with my accuracy intact and no status condition. Murkrow's next, Ice Punch one-shots it and the following Vileplume. Gengar comes in, it's faster so it's able to use Curse, but Psychic finishes it. That leaves only Houndoom. In this case I have Surf, which is super effective, but the Houndoom's Crunch does massive damage first. Luckily, Slowking survives, so that's that. Now it's time for the champion, Lance. For this battle, I have taught Rest in the place of Headbutt. This is usually the safest way to go about fighting Lance because you can heal if you get hit by a status condition. And I don't really have a way to avoid that because Slowking and Slowbro are both going to be slower than the Dragonites that have Thunder Wave. I'm using Ice Punch in combination with the Nevermelt Ice, although I don't think this is necessary. I could probably be using the Quick Claw here to hopefully outspeed some Pokemon. In this case though, Dragonite number 1 does not choose to use Thunder Wave, which is so rare. Instead, it goes for Thunder and it misses. After that, the next one does paralyze Slowking, but I knock it out with Ice Punch. The final Dragonite comes in, it just uses Safeguard. I fail to attack once because of paralysis, but on the next turn, Ice Punch hits and his ace goes down. Okay, Aerodactyl's next. It goes for Rock Slide. Slowking is fully paralyzed. It goes for Rock Slide again. Luckily, this doesn't flinch me. Rest works, healing Slowking to full. I wake up, knock out the Aerodactyl, and move on to the final Pokemon, Charizard. It goes for Hyper Beam, doesn't do nearly enough damage, even with Slowking's lower physical defense, and with that, Lance is done. Slowbro is going to play almost identically throughout the majority of the league. Will, Koga, Bruno, they're all pretty much the same, although Bruno goes better this time because they don't get hit by Thunder Punch and paralyzed. For Karen, it doesn't look like she's always prioritizing Feint Attack with the Umbreon. This time around she goes for Confuse Ray instead, but then she starts using Feint Attack, so I still don't have my accuracy lowered. But my health is lower, and remember, Crunch is a special move, which could be problematic for Slowbro. However, I'm holding the Quick Claw, so maybe I'm gonna move first, and the answer is yes, I am. Surf hits the Houndoom and knocks it out, allowing me to beat Karen with no resets during the Elite Four. For Lance, I have a little bit of a trickier situation with Slowbro. Its moveset right now is Surf, Psychic, Amnesia, and Ice Punch. Obviously, Ice Punch is needed here against Lance's team. Surf is also helpful against the Aerodactyl and the Charizard, and Psychic is good against the Gyarados. I don't want to drop Amnesia because I need it for red at the end of the game, so for this battle, I chose to forego Rest. This is one case where Slowbro's better move pool is actually a detriment to it. Now, there is a way around this. I could just teach Rest in the place of Psychic and then grab the Psychic TM as soon as I get to Kanto, but I'm going to want to hold on to Rest and Amnesia for the final battle of the game, so even if I do that, then I would have to replace either Surf or Ice Punch with Psychic, and while that might make sense, Ice Punch is still pretty useful during Kanto. If I can hold on to all the moves, that would be the better case scenario. However, in this case, I'm paralyzed, and by the time the final Dragonite goes down, I have orange health left over for the final two Pokemon. Aerodactyl hits with Ancient Power. I have 55 health left over now. Charizard comes in. It attacks with Slash. Slowbro's physical defenses shrug off the normal type move, so it also makes it by Lance without a reset. I want to just do a quick comparison of all the splits up until now during the run. These two have remained extremely close together. By the way, we do track milliseconds, so there's some rounding stuff that's happening in the differences. Just be aware of that. The most amount of time that these two have been apart is 1 minute and 32 seconds, which was during the Koga split. After that, the times got closer and closer, so now after Lance, Slowking is only in the lead by 46 seconds. Time for the Kanto gym leaders. Erica's easy because of Ice Punch. Surf is good against Sabrina, and I can also use Rest here. It's a little bit of a slow fight. The Starmie on Misty's team is the only Pokemon I don't have neutral damage for, so it slows me down a little bit, especially with Confuse Ray, but in the end, Slowking doesn't care. Surge almost ends up being awful because he does paralyze Slowking, and I get taken to low health, but I use Rest on one of the Electrodes, which are pretty incompetent. Brock, Blaine, and Janine are all easy to sweep. Blue is by far the best gym leader. He has a team which is very diverse, but in this case, I'm not really worried about him. Ice Punch is great against the Pidgeot and the Executor. Then for the Alakazam, I can use Surf twice to knock it out. Psychic takes care of the Gyarados in 2 turns, and then Surf is super effective against the Arcanine and the Rhydon. The win here brings Slowking up to level 62. I have collected 9 rare candies to this point in the run. The only one I haven't picked up is the one that's right beside Mount Silver. At this point, I figured I didn't need it. With 9 candies, I can bring Slowking all the way from 62 up to 71. And I am sure that that is going to be enough to take on Red. Okay, Slowbro's time for all of Kanto. It's also easy. I don't have Rest here, so I can't heal. You would think that maybe that would make some of the battles a little bit worse, but it really doesn't. I don't have any issues against Surge. He doesn't even paralyze Slowbro. And Blue is also really easy. Just the passive healing from leftovers is more than enough to make it through this battle. I set up Amnesia once, so his Pokemon were doing very little damage to me. The only 2 that really are good at physical attacking are the Pidgeot, which is not really a good physical attacker, and the Rhydon, but the Rhydon loves to use things like Sandstorm and Fury Attack instead of the moves Rock Slide and Earthquake, which would be much better. Plus, the Rhydon's not even going to be able to attack because it is slower than Slowbro. Surf one-shots. Just like with Slowking, I head back to Blackthorn City, I delete Surf, and then I teach Curse to Slowbro alongside the generic moves, Rest and Return. Since I used rare candies before Clair, I'm going to be a lower level at the end of the game. Right now I can boost Slowbro up to level 68 before taking on Red. Pikachu is first, and this is where things get a little bit annoying. Instead of Charm on turn 1, it goes for Thunder, luckily missing, giving me a free Amnesia. This is very needed because Slowbro with lower special defense is going to take a lot more damage from this electric type move. Still though, once I get my Amnesias fully set up, Pikachu is doing very little damage, and I figured that would give me the safety I needed to set up with Curse. The only problems Slowbro is going to have here are if it gets paralyzed or if it gets critical hit, and the latter of these two things occurs, with Thunderbolt of all moves, which does enough damage and Slowbro faints. Pikachu crits with Thunder in the next battle, really early on, not wasting too much time. I guess that's nice. Then I take a long time to set up, and yeah, Pikachu crits again, this time with Thunderbolt, and it does enough damage to knock Slowbro out. There is a better way to play this battle for Slowbro. I shouldn't be setting up fully on the Pikachu, instead maxing out my amnesias, then using Curse a little bit to increase my attack stat. After that, I can just knock the Pikachu out at +2 attack and move on to the Espeon, which is second. I'm actually not sure why Red is sending this thing out, because its moves are not good against Slowbro, and he does have Venusaur, which has grass type moves. I figured he would want to send in that next. Since Espeon is his choice next, and it can't do very much damage with Psychic, I can just set up with Curse, max out my attack stat, and then start my sweep using Return. Slowbro is not great physically though. I fail to knock out the Espeon with one return because of Reflect, but it fades for the Snorlax. Although, I get paralyzed before knocking it out, which is a little bit frustrating. Venusaur sets up Sunny Day, Paralysis doesn't prevent my attack, the grass type faints, Blastoise comes in next. I'm paralyzed a little bit here, but he's gonna do so little damage with his final two Pokemon, it doesn't matter. I take out the turtle, move on to the lizard, and Charizard also goes down to a single hit from return. Slowbro clocks in with a first playthrough time of 1 hour 19 minutes and 32 seconds, with 7 resets, 2 blackouts at level 69 with a game time of 4 hours and 55 minutes. I thought that Slowbro was going to be the favorite here, but Slowking has the potential to defeat it. And there is an advantage for it in the final battle, because Red's Pikachu won't do as much damage to it with its higher base special defense. That's at the start of the battle, but as we progress through the battle, that's going to change because I don't have access to Amnesia, meaning I can't set up here, which might actually be a benefit. I'm going to set up with Curse against the Pikachu, tank 2 Thunders, which Slowking can survive, and then with neutral attack, I want to move on to the remainder of the battle. Remember, I know that Espeon is next. Psychic is able to one-shot the Pikachu, which is really great. Espeon comes out next, and I pushed things a little bit too far here, not choosing to use Rest right away, instead trying to set up more Curses. This is just a mistake. With 2 Psychics, Espeon finishes Slowking. Here's the thing though, I learned a lot from that battle. Even if Pikachu uses Charm, I don't need to set up against it and take tons of damage from Thunder. I can just go for Psychic right away, knock it out, and then against Espeon, I can set up all of the Curses that I would ever want. The only possible downside here is if Espeon's Psychics lower my special defense and it starts doing progressively more and more damage. I wanted to avoid this scenario. At +2 attack and +4 defense, I can knock out the Espeon knowing that Snorlax is coming in next. I'm going to take very little damage from its physical moves now, so I can continue my Curse setup, max out my attack, and then sweep through Red's remaining Pokemon after using Rest. Snorlax goes down, Venusaur goes down, Blastoise falls, and so does Charizard. Slowking clocks in with a first playthrough time of 1 hour 17 minutes and 47 seconds, with 4 resets, 0 blackouts at level 72, with a game time of 4 hours and 57 minutes. Comparing these metrics, Slowking was faster than Slowbro by 1 minute and 45 seconds. It had 3 less resets, 2 less blackouts, but Slowbro finished the game 3 levels lower, and its game time was also 2 minutes faster. I want to quickly summarize my thoughts on these first 2 playthroughs. I don't think objectively Slowking is better after these results. I do think it has some advantages that I was discounting when I went into the run. I just thought the starting set from Slowbro was so much better that that would give it an advantage. But I missed the fact that the rival in Azalea Town is going to be the great equalizer between these two. Both of them are really terrible against him, and there's going to be a lot of RNG in that section of the game. Also, I do think in the first playthrough, Slowbro got quite unlucky with the reset against Chuck. That shouldn't be happening, especially in these follow-up runs where now I'm going to be able to assign my hidden power whatever type I want. And obviously, for the follow-up playthrough with Slowbro, I went with hidden power Psychic. This one allows my attack DV to stay unchanged at 15. My defense DV will be 12, and my HP is going to be 11. So it's a small reduction to HP as well as defense, but both of those stats don't really matter with Slowbro. I much prefer having a strong same type attack bonus move that is superior to Confusion. Plus, this is going to help me solve the problem that was Chuck. But before we get there, we have to talk about the early game because this is a nightmarish part for these Pokemon. I got really lucky in the first playthrough making it by the rival. To be fair, in my first runs, I require myself to complete the game no matter how bumpy the playthrough is. So even if I reset like 15 times to him, I would have kept going. But in these second playthroughs, I don't do that. I want to get through the game in a fast, efficient way. And sometimes there is this like valley of despair, it feels like in a lot of cases. It feels like that for Slowbro. That's what I'm calling it today. Anyways, on one side of the valley, you have a really risky strategy that sometimes works, and you can do it at a low level and save a ton of time. On the other side of the valley, you have a strategy that's consistent, but it costs so much time to get there that it's usually not worth it to go for that option. In between these two strategies, there's like a swamp filled with nothing useful because you're not consistent enough to warrant going a few levels higher, but you're also not risky enough to shave off the maximum possible amount of time. As of late on the channel, I've been trying to get better and better times with Pokemon, and the only way to do that is choosing the risky strategy. But part of my work is demonstrating to you why I am making choices, or also alternative options that you could also consider for your own playthroughs. So let's go through some damage ranges against the rival so you can see what the two options available are. If we stay very close to minimum battles, then we're going to fight the rival at level 15 with Slowbro. This will give Water Gun a 2-shot on the Ghastly, and if we're able to set up 4 turns of Curse, then we will 2-shot the Bayleaf with Swift and 1-shot the Zubat. The issue with this is getting 4 turns of Curse. Without any setup, Lick is doing between 8 and 10% damage per turn, which means the Bayleaf's Razor Leafs will likely knock out Slowbro. They do between 37 and 44% damage when they don't get critical hits. However, it is possible for the Ghastly to just use Hypnosis and miss, or use Spite at the worst possible times. It's also possible for it to only use 1 Lick, or for the Bayleaf to miss with Razor Leaf. If your health is good, the Bayleaf can also use a move like Poison Powder, wasting some time. Reflect and Growl don't really waste time because they are making Swift take longer to knock the Grass type out. Now I'm going to add in a bunch of other trainers to the route. Not quite every single trainer that's available, but all the ones that give decent experience that Slowbro can knock out fairly quickly. I don't want to fight Bugcatcher Wade, for example, because he has terrible Pokemon that give almost no experience. Fighting these extra people, Slowbro arrives at the rival at level 17, which is not over the next damage rounding threshold. However, at level 17, the damage ranges have changed quite substantially still. With only 2 uses of Curse, I have a 96.4% chance to knock out the Bayleaf in 2 turns. Also, Razor Leaf's damage has gone down to 29 to 35% per turn, so this is definitely more reliable. But I tried a couple of runs with this strategy in my practice and they didn't go well. I still just ended up resetting a bunch and then eventually decided to restart the playthrough. I lost a full day of playtime trying to get by this rival at different levels and different degrees of consistency. I think if you really want to make the rival consistent, what you should just do is level to 20 on wild Pokemon and then 1-shot the Ghastly with Confusion, 3-shot the Bayleaf with Confusion, and 1-shot the Zubat. At this level, Razor Leaf only does 22 to 26% damage, but this is just going to cost way too much time, especially in Johto. So the decision that I made going into my final follow-up playthrough on the 3rd day of me playing Slowbro was that I'm going to do it at level 15, I'm going to luck through, and I'm going to accept somewhere between 1 to 3 resets since the rival is very inconsistent. I am going to benefit Slowbro's eventual finish time so much more doing it this way. In my run, I get 1 reset, but then I'm able to defeat the rival. The next thing to change is the mid-game, which is going to be massively different because I'm going to the Lake of Rage first to pick up Hidden Power Psychic. My moveset for Slowbro is going to be Headbutt, Ice Punch, Hidden Power Psychic, and Surf throughout the mid-game. I do go to the Lighthouse first before coming back to face Morty. This is just so I can have the Mint Berry, but Hidden Power Psychic makes the Ghost-type trainer so much easier because I can 1-shot his ace Gengar. Then against Chuck, my damage ranges are better, 1-shot on the Primeape and a 2-shot on the Poliwrath. Even if it gets lucky and hits a Dynamic Punch here, I don't really care about the Confusion because I'm doing so much damage. I could have used a Bitterberry, but I decided to go with the Mint Berry because the Poliwrath can still use Hypnosis, and I would prefer for Slowbro to be confused rather than asleep. So how did I solve the damage ranges against Pryce with both of these Pokemon? Well, it's really simple. If you have Hidden Power Psychic, then you can 2-shot the Seal and 3-shot the Dugong consistently, so it's never going to be able to spam Rest. Now to solve Clair, so I don't have to use rare candies right in front of her with Slowbro, I'm going to buy different vitamins in the department store. 4 Carbos to boost speed, and 3 Calcium, which just help in the late game, taking less damage against the Pikachu. With those 4 Carbos, now Slowbro is faster than all the Dragonairs at level 45, and it can 1-shot with Ice Punch. Also, Hidden Power Psychic helps here against the Kingdra because it gives an 82.5% chance to 2-shot. This reduces the chance that Kingdra gets awful, spamming things like Smokescreen over and over again. After Clair's defeated, I'm going to skip the 2 rare candies that cost a lot of time because Slowbro doesn't need them. I'm not going to fight Red over a damage rounding threshold at level 68, but I still will be level 67, and this is enough to beat Red. Skipping these 2 rare candies is going to save roughly 45 to 50 seconds of time, and that is equivalent to 1 or 2 fast resets against red. Again, I'm playing slightly risky here to give myself a better potential for Slowbro's finish time. Okay, let's talk about the Elite Four. Here are damage ranges if I use no rare candies against them. I'm not going to be one-shotting some of Will's Pokemon, like the Executor, and even potentially the Ace Xatu, although that would be very unlucky. Against Koga, I also have inconsistent damage ranges. The same is true against Bruno's Machamp, and against Karen, I don't have a guaranteed 2-hit on the Umbreon. To solve literally all of these problems, I can just use 5 rare candies prior to the league. This doesn't give me a guarantee against the Muck, I only have a 64% chance to knock it out, but all of the other Pokemon are essentially solved, with the exception of Umbreon, which still is going to take 2 hits to knock out, meaning it can use Sand Attack. Because of that, I take 1 reset here against Karen before proceeding to Lance. I also decided to do this fight without rest. I know that I could do it with rest. I didn't want to. That does cause 1 reset, so I lose a little bit more time before I head to Kanto. Still, my times are looking very good in comparison to my previous playthrough. By the time I finish Blue, I'm 4 minutes and 45 seconds ahead. I get a bit unlucky against Red. In this case, he spams Charm too many times, and I'm not able to fully set up my attack stat. This reset did waste a lot of time, and it was really frustrating. But the strategy is the same between this playthrough and the previous one. We're going to do a little bit of setup on the Pikachu so that we can one-shot it using Return in this case, and then on the Espeon, we'll complete our setup and sweep through the remainder of his team members. If we get crit along the way, we're going to have another reset, which is frustrating, but eventually Slowbro is going to be able to pull through. I defeat Red and clock in with a better second playthrough time of 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 55 seconds, with 6 resets, 0 blackouts at level 68, with a game time of 4 hours and 41 minutes. This is 3 minutes and 37 seconds faster than my first playthrough. So where has Slowbro earned itself a placement in the tier list? Well, right now by another water type at the end of the A tier. My current result with Blastoise is only 6 seconds faster than Slowbro, but I think when I come back to run Blastoise again, it's gonna do much better. After all, it has a medium slow growth rate, and its speed is faster than Slowbro, even though it's a turtle. With Slowbro ranked, now let's see how Slowking can do in its follow-up run. I want to start the same way that I did with Slowbro, examining the rival in Azalea Town. This battle is quite different because of Slowking's higher special defense. Bayleaf's Razor Leaf only does between 29 and 34% damage with a single hit, which is much less than it does to Slowbro. This leads us to a fairly simple conclusion. If both of these two Pokemon are trying to luck through the rival at a low level, Slowking is going to do it more frequently than Slowbro will. I really don't mean to imply that Slowking is going to win every single time against the rival. I also had an awful time beating him. I didn't lose a full day of playtime in this case, but I did lose a couple hours restarting the run over and over again until I got the rival split that I was happy with. For this one, I'm also utilizing a slightly different strategy, which is Mud Slap against the Ghastly to lower its accuracy. Then I can set up Curse and hopefully it's going to miss a little bit more, allowing me to get fully set up, and then use Swift to two-shot the Bayleaf. Now, I do want to muse for a moment on the level 20 strategy with Confusion for Slowking because I don't think it makes any sense. Because Razor Leaf is doing so much less damage due to the higher special defense, I think that Slowking is far more optimal to shoot for level 15, whereas I think you could more easily make a case to level up Slowbro more. That said, in the end, I think both of these Pokemon will perform on average better if they're doing this fight at the lowest possible level. With Slowking, I'm going to play the mid game essentially identical to how Slowbro's was. One difference is against the Red Gyarados, where my lower physical defense means Thrash hits really hard, and I do take 1 reset here before defeating it. This is one frustration of running a slow Pokemon. On average, they're going to have more resets than a Pokemon that can outspeed. Moving first just makes battles so much more consistent. From there, Slowking stays on track with Slowbro, using the same vitamins in the department store to outspeed Clair's Pokemon, and then during the league, it essentially crushes all of the trainers here because it has access to Psychic earlier on. This is where there's another theoretical difference between these two Pokemon. For example, Slowbro did have some problems against Karen. Both of them are of course weak to the Dark type, and that's where Slowking's higher special defense comes in. If the Houndoom hits it with Crunch, it's going to take much less damage. I think in most cases this fight is just going to come down to if the Umbreon Sand attacks or not, but in the circumstances where that does happen, I think Slowking has the advantage. It's more likely to survive a hit from the Houndoom and be able to finish it off with a second Surf. Plus, once Karen's defeated, there's there's no moveset constraints here. I don't have amnesia, so again, I'm going to teach rest. This is another small way where the strategy is slightly more streamlined when using Slowking. I don't think it's better. I would prefer to have amnesia, but in this case, not having other options does mean that Lance ends up being slightly more consistent, or at least slightly more intuitive from a strategical perspective. At some point during the run, you're going to teach rest. It's one of the best moves in Generation 2. And if it helps you prevent resets here against Lance, you might as well do it now, provided you're going to have the final moveset that you need against Red. And providing that you have the moveset that you're going to need to sweep all the way through Kanto. And Slowking does at this point. Really, the only fight where I see Slowbro as having an advantage against Slowking is against Red at the very end of the game. However, by this time, Slowking has been able to accumulate enough advantages throughout the playthrough that it's already really ahead of Slowbro's time. So provided it just has a fairly lucky Red fight, it's going to come out on top. I'm using my solution from the first playthrough for Red, so one-shotting the Pikachu using Psychic, then setting up Curse against the Espeon while it spams Psychic. The only downside here is if it drops my special defense. This does happen, and I do take resets to Red. I have a total of 3 before I set up my attack enough, knock out the Espeon, move on to the Snorlax, complete my setup, and then sweep through the remaining Pokemon on Red's team. Slowking clocks in with a second playthrough of 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 8 seconds, with 4 resets, 0 blackouts at level 68, with a game time of 4 hours and 36 minutes. Let's compare the results from these two follow-up playthroughs because things are much clearer now. Slowking is 3 minutes and 46 seconds ahead in real time. It had 2 less resets. They both had no blackouts. They finished the game at the exact same level, and Slowking was 4 minutes faster in terms of game time. So this is how all of the cards fell. I will admit, emotionally, after finishing the second Slowking run, I was in a bit of disbelief. I didn't think that Slowking would outperform in both runs, and yeah, I think I got a little bit of an unlucky Slowbro playthrough, so these two are probably closer together than these results suggest. That said, I do think that Slowking winning 2 times in a row is not a fluke. I think that the special defense stat is the better defensive stat in Generation 2, and these playthroughs clearly illustrate that. And maybe that generality isn't entirely true because some other types might benefit more from having a higher defensive stat if they're weak to only physical types, for example. However, with these two water psychic types, the special defense stat is just better. And I think the fact that 5 of Red's Pokemon are special attackers really emphasizes the fact that having a little bit more special defense is always just going to help a Pokemon slightly more, because in the most difficult battle, you're going to want to rely on that stat. Here are the timelines for both of these playthroughs, and you can see how close these two are. Until during the league where Slowbro had extra resets, then it got slightly behind, and you'll also notice that it had a longer Red split when compared with Slowking. Some of this is player error because I'm never a perfect human, some of this is luck, but overall I think Slowking is the superior Pokemon. Here are the run summaries for both of these two Pokemon in case you want to sit down and try these two out yourself. They're quite fun as long as you don't mind moving second. Now let's rank Slowking in the tier list. With a time of 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 8 seconds, it was able to earn itself the 4th spot in the A tier. This is behind Tyranitar's result of 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 54 seconds, and ahead of Miltank's 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 35 second result. Also, I should mention Slowking beat out Feraligatr. I don't think that's going to be the case when I go back and replay Feraligatr. It's probably going to make it into the S tier and join the other 2 water types there, Poliwhirl and Politoed. If you want to see how they do, check out the previous Versus video that I did in Pokemon Crystal. Now, just before I end this video, I want to mention something. The water type is becoming very prominent at the top of the Crystal tier list. Right now, in the S and A tier, there are 7 water types. And that's if you don't count Lugia, because it is in fact not a water type, despite that making absolutely no sense. Anyway, I think this type is going to continue performing very well. But you know what type doesn't have any entries in the S or A tier? The grass type. I think I need to re-rank Celebi, but also I need to do the split evolution that was introduced in Generation 2. So next time, I'm going to play Vileplume and Blossom and see how they do in Pokemon Crystal. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.